Hello and welcome everybody. I'm Matt Parker at LeverX. Welcome to the SAP Workflow Built in SAP So It Works webinar. We have Michael McManaman and Pete Demchenko that will be your hosts for today. So again, I wanted to welcome everybody to the call. Let's take a second just to go over some basic housekeeping rules. Please notice the control panel that's on your screen. There is a couple sections where you can ask questions. If you see the little arrows where it says questions or chat, either one works. You can click on those and type in your questions as they occur to you. And then at the end of today's session, we'll go through the questions and then answer each and every one of those individually. So again, if you have questions, we encourage you to write them in the questions or the chat section, and then we'll cover those at the end. So here's Pete and Michael. Guys, you want to say a few words?
Hi, yeah, I'm Pete Demchenko. I'm Director of Sales and Strategic Accounts. I've been with LeverX 6 years now. Before that at SAP, I was the PLM practice manager and a platinum consultant for SAP. And then prior to that, I worked at Unigraphics, which is currently Siemens, and before that at Eastman Kodak Company. Mike?
Yep. Mike McManaman, Senior SAP Consultant at LeverX and the IPS Functional Lead. So IPS is what we're going to be showing you today. And I've been with LeverX for 7.5 years, but I'll be doing most of the demo. So I'll pass it over to Pete and he can do our introductions.
Sure. Okay, next slide, Matt.
Yep. So just a few points about LeverX. Again, LeverX is a global company. We were founded by Dr. Victor Lazinski. He's based in Mountain View, California, which is our global headquarters. I'm calling today from the Troy, Michigan office, and that's where both Michael and myself are based. We have another development center in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, and then several locations throughout Europe to handle your needs. Again, we just eclipsed 1,000 employees this year, which is a big milestone for us. And then we've been in business. Victor founded the company 18 years ago in 2003. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Pete.
Hi, folks. This is the agenda for today's call. We went through the introductions. We'll talk a little bit about what IPS is, and then what the IPS ticket is, and then why it was built. And then Mike will show you some really cool stuff. So next slide, please, Matt. What's IPS? IPS is what's called the Integrated Process Solution. It's a solution that, with two transports into the SAP system, allows you to build true end-to-end business processes across any SAP user interface for any SAP object. And you can also include other systems into these end-to-end processes as well. So it's a true integration to SAP where a lot of our competitor workflow solutions are not. IPS supports any SAP object in any SAP UI, which is a critical deal because a lot of times customers aren't all on Fiori or they're in some mixed mode while they're transitioning, and you can continue to keep your business processes running. We support any SAP process in your enterprise, so not just in PLM where we were born, but also across your entire enterprise. And you can also expand IPS out to handshake to other strategic systems. So you can include us as the backbone that ties together all the systems within your enterprise strategy. IPS creates true end-to-end business processes, so start to finish. That's where a start to finish company, and start to finish is where our processes reflect. They're easy to use, geared toward the general business user, so you don't have to send out all your workflows globally to have them built someplace and hope that they work and take 3 months to do them. We do things in a matter of days and hours versus months and weeks. IPS retains a complete history of your business processes. So if you're a regulated company, or not, you can always go back and see what decisions were made, what was involved in the decisions, and you can collect them. And IPS, think of us as a mini ServiceNow, except we're fully integrated into SAP and we're much less expensive. Next slide, Matt. What is the IPS ticket? The IPS ticket is a tool or object created by the development team that enables workflow for any object in SAP or non-SAP. So it's the container that allows you to link different objects and set up the workflows, the processes that you want, be able to call different processes. It's a nice little thing that you're going to see Mike show you in a few minutes. The IPS ticket contains the following: a header and custom fields. So you could set up the fields that are important to you, the status network that's involved in the workflow, the SAP objects, and these are any SAP object that you want to put into the container, link to the container, then be able to use based on the processes that you want to set up. Any attachments, supporting information, any of those kind of things. 3D CAD models, images, lightweight JP files, any kind of document, pretty much anything. And then the workflow itself that you'll see when we do the demo. And it's a very flexible tool, so you could use it for all sorts of different processes. And Mike will be able to show you some of those in our demo today. Next one, Matt. And why we built a ticket? Our workflow is very simple, easy to use, easy to build, business user geared workflow. So I remember the days in SAP where it took months and months to build workflows, and we shipped them out across the world to have them created, and you had to have a master's degree in ABAP to do it. All of that is now gone. You can do these with simple drag and drop kind of capabilities, plenty of templates available for you to use to start with, and very easy to train and easy to get user acceptance, which is very important on any project. And you know, if you've done a lot of projects, user acceptance is the key to success. And when users accept it, you'll find out they'll quickly expand its use. And once you buy the ticket and the IPS, it's available for use across your entire enterprise. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. McManaman.
Thank you. I'm going to try to share my screen. Let me see. Yep. Can you see my screen?
Yep, we can.
Okay, do you see the business client?
Yep.
Okay, good. Okay, so what we're looking at right now, Mike McManaman here, we're looking at one of our internal LeverX systems, and you're looking at the business client. So like Pete said, IPS and IPS tickets are integrated on any number of UIs. Today I'm going to show you launching this from a Fiori Launchpad. So even if some of your existing customers, I'm going to show you the Fiori inbox because we've done more integration with the tickets into the Fiori inbox. So we've done some development around that. So I'm going to kick off a ticket. I've actually already created it, but I want to start off. I'm going to start off in the world that LeverX is familiar with, new product introduction, engineering change management. I'm going to start off showing you this ticket type. And then I'm going to show you also something more interesting, maybe with sales orders, so something outside of that traditional PLM world. LeverX is known for PLM, but we're also in a lot of other different areas in business processes. So here's an IPS ticket. So on the left side, you can see the header information. We have a ticket number, so just like numbering like any other SAP object. You see your ticket type, you see your status. You can see your status on the top right as well with the status roadmap. You can see where you're at in the process. We have a basic description. We have a summary. And in a moment, you'll see reference object type and reference object populated with a change number because we're talking about engineering change management. But we could have any number of standard fields, reason and group. And we could also have a lot of custom fields here if we want to use that for workflow. So IPS is a decision-based workflow tool. So I'm going to skip over that decision portion at the bottom right now, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what you see on the right side. So we're doing new product introduction in this scenario. You might have some existing objects you want to change, and you might have some new objects you want to change. If you look at the objects, you can see a bunch of objects that I've already added to this. So you can see we have a bunch of different objects: routings, recipes, materials, documents. I actually have something outside of SAP that I can link to. So if I click on LPD, I'll be able to, it'll open into Jira. So this is just one example. We can integrate with any number of outside websites or different tools directly into the ticket. So also documents, if we're clicking on documents, it would open up the document in this interface. We also have attachments, so you can see it's quick and easy to add attachments to a ticket. We also have a note section. I'm going to click on the workflow tab, and I'm going to expand. So let me tell you a little bit about what you're looking at on the screen if you're not familiar with IPS or have never seen IPS workflow. This is a more complex view. I'm going to show you a simple view. You can see that in this initial step of the workflow, if I was doing this, I would be assigning resources. And then after we complete that, we would create and revise materials, documents, and BOMs. And then we would go to extend materials and additional work once those 3 tasks are complete, and then move on to review and approve. So just one scenario, just to give you an idea of how long this took. This is almost all configuration. We built this ticket type, what you're seeing on the screen in this workflow, within a matter of an hour or 2. So it's very, very quick to get something up and running if you just want to prototype something, or if you wanted to send us a process and have us show it in the system. So a little bit about how IPS works. Like I said, it's decision-based, and we have 3 different types of tasks in our workflow. We have decision-based tasks, so somebody makes a decision and then it goes to different places in the workflow. So for example, I'm going to complete in a moment assign resources. We'll send out 3 work items. In this case, it'll all go to me, but we can have complex agent determination to determine who's going to actually be doing the creating and revising of materials, documents, and BOMs. And then hypothetically, if somebody had an issue, they looked at this, they got the email because we sent out emails, or looked in their SAP inbox and they had a problem, they would select a decision that they want to get more information, and then we can assign it back to assign resources. So the point of that is just showing this workflow is flexible. You can go back and forth, and it's all documented. You can see where you're at in the process at any given time, so you have visibility into your process if you use IPS workflow. So I talked about dialogue tasks. We also have notification tasks. So if I go into a more complex view of the workflow, we can see that we send out emails. Something we've added recently in IPS 5.0, if you are an existing customer or if you've never used this tool, is now you can add email to notifications. So that means in this case, you might be working with a customer, an external supplier. We could always send them an email. They don't have to have an SAP login. We just have to have an email address. We could send them a notification with a PDF attachment of what's changed, for example. That's one scenario. Then we also have the ability with system tasks to do a lot more automation. So, in this MPI scenario, you might want to release all your materials, BOMs, specifications, documents all at the same time, so we can auto shift some of those statuses in the background. And in a little bit, I'm going to show you some of the, ability to use interfaces and to call things outside of SAP to do some kind of work. So those system tasks give you a lot of, makes it very dynamic and very custom for your solution. In this workflow solution, we've had a bunch of demos recently. We get a lot of questions about escalations. Those are possible. So if you, don't have somebody who doesn't complete a work item for 3 or 4 days, we have the ability to send reminder emails to them or maybe a manager. And the other thing to note here is this sits on top of standard SAP workflow. So a lot of those things like substitutions, those kind of things. If somebody's gone, you can set up substitutions. That works with IPS. So a lot of that functionality is already there. We have things that we're adding all the time. We've just released IPS 5.0, so we have expected completion dates and due dates for individual tasks, so you can get some insights into if your process is working or the bottlenecks are, and things like that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and make a positive decision on here, and I'm going to click Set for Implementation. You notice there's two decisions. So like I said, decision-based, all configuration in the background. In this case, I could send for an implementation, which will move it forward, or I can click Ticket Canceled, and it would jump to later in the workflow, automatically shift the status of the ticket to 90, and do other things such as that. So, could have 4 or 5 different decisions, jump all around the workflow. So it's kind of up to your imagination, your process flow, how we build these workflows. So I'm going to go ahead and say send for implementation and save. And one thing I want to show MPI related before I jump into sales orders, I'm going to close out of this. I'm going to go to my workflow inbox if you've never seen the Fiori inbox. So this is integrated with the GUI inbox. Maybe that's what you use. Maybe use, a lot of customers, we use the web UI inbox in SAP. But maybe if you see this, you'll want to use the Fiori inbox. We've done some work in it, so we have more integration with an IPS ticket. So here we can see I got my 3 tasks: create revised BOMs, create revised documents, create revised materials. In some demos, recent demonstrations, customers, scenario like that, they would want the engineer to make the decision, and maybe that engineer has ECTR. So we have integration. I won't show it today, but we have integration with ECTR if you're an ECTR customer, and we have IPS in there so that they can make decisions and see information directly in ECTR. But you'll notice you can see a lot if you're familiar with the inbox and IPS if you're an existing customer. We also have added a bunch of stuff in the Fiori inbox. So you can see your basic task description, ticket description, but also directly in this inbox, you don't even have to open up the ticket. You can see your objects. You can see if we had any agents here. You can see all your attachments, and you can see some of those workflow decisions that have been made. So more information directly in the inbox to make a decision, so you don't have to do any extra clicks. Another nice feature here with the Fiori inbox is you can make decisions directly in the inbox. You don't have to, first execute. We can go ahead and click work completed, make a comment if we want, and submit. So I've made my decision, and now my work item is gone, and my work is actually completed. Okay, so that was the new product introduction. Showed you some things there. That's traditional PLM. I want to show you a little bit of something outside of this. So we have a sales order scenario where we want to change some conditions. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up a sales order. And I'm going to go ahead and make a change to the sales order. So a couple things that we're going to accomplish in this scenario. I'm going to make a condition change. I'm going to do a manual price override on this sales order. It's going to automatically trigger a ticket in the background, and it's going to block this from being used. So we're going to do some automation in the background. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to open up my sales order. I'm going to go ahead. We can see this delivery block is currently blank, so we have no block on it. I'm going to go to my material, go to my condition. And I already have a manual price override configured in the system. We can say, hey, we want the $4 discount here. So somebody's going to need to approve, hey, is this okay to do this manual price override? I'm going to go ahead and click save. And in the background now, a ticket has been generated for an approval. So I will get an email shortly saying, hey, you have a approval to make on this. If I were to go ahead and open this in display mode, one second, let me go back, open my inbox. Let me find it. My apologies. So I have my sales order ticket here. It's going to set the delivery block to no printing available. I got an email in the background called manual price override. And if I make this decision, we're going to have a ticket status shift to 20. Something's not going correctly in the system, but you can see the sales orders linked here. But earlier I can show you, we have integration with, we have system tasks that can be called and do integration with outside systems. So a little bit earlier, since it's not working right now, we had a manual price override scenario, and we just wrote to a Google Sheet. So it's not something that maybe would happen, but it's just an example of, in the background with system tasks, you can write to things outside of SAP and do some type of work in that way. So if I were to go ahead and make a decision on this, it would remove the delivery block, and this would be approved, and we would get an email back that this has been completed. You can also see on this ticket, we have some custom fields. When this ticket was created, we passed some information automatically in the background to this ticket that was automatically created and passed some of that information off. Then you can see we have a direct integration with the sales order. So just a little bit more automation. Let me go ahead and I want to show you something that always comes up. So you have all this data. What are we going to do with this information? I want to see a little bit more about my process. So one of the focuses on our next IPS release, we're going to have a heavy focus on reporting. And typically a lot of customers, we do a lot of extractors to get a lot of this information out. So if you use Tableau or one of those other services, then you can use that. So we've built extractors for that. So I'm going to go ahead and show up the IPS workflow analysis, and I'm going to show this report. A lot of information you can see here about your whole workflow process. So your entry point is, what is the process I want to analyze? In this case, I want to see the engineering change management ticket. And here under basic analysis, you can see a bunch of information. What's the average duration this takes? How many workflows are in progress? What are my total workflows? I can see a list of all those tickets that are out there, what their status are, start and end date, how long they've taken. And then I have visibility into what are the current tasks that are out there and who are the current agents that are assigned to those tasks. So now I have complete visibility. I can see, hey, who's working on things, who has open work items. This is just one report. We have another report for due dates where we can see what items do I have that are due this week that I need to work on, which ones are due next week, and which ones are due today. So I can click on and find a little bit more information. If I go to the task details section, I can see how many decisions have been made and who's been making those decisions. I can see how many times this decision has been made and which ones have been made. And I can see some task data here as well, who's made the decision, when, and why. And then average duration per task. I can get full visibility in one of my processes and the average duration it takes. So if I were to be thinking of a engineering change process, I could see, hey, this is where my bottleneck is. This is taking the longest. I wouldn't expect this duration. So I'm going to go ahead and stop we have about 5 minutes and see if we have any questions in the chat.
So again, if you have any questions for Mike, please use on your control panel the questions section or the chat section on the right-hand side of your screen. So first questions in, Mike, and it is, why should I consider using IPS versus standard SAP workflow?
Sure. Yeah. So with IPS, it sits on top of standard SAP workflow, but SAP workflow traditionally takes weeks to develop, maybe months. What I showed on the screen with the different workflows, that will take, if you have a well-defined process, it'll take a couple of hours. Obviously, there's extra decisions to be made about additional fields or maybe some automation, but it's a lot quicker. It's easier to change. It's easier to maintain. You don't need a developer to make a workflow. You don't have to have a developer to change anything. You could go in and train one of your business users to make workflows and to change. Maybe you want to change descriptions. That's simple and easy to do, and it'll take a matter of minutes.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. Next question. Fiori is limited to S/4HANA implementation, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes. You would need some kind of some of the Fiori functionality is only if you're using change records or something, you would need a S/4HANA license. But we're integrated with all bunch of different type of user interfaces. So if you don't want to use, we've had some clients that say, hey, I don't want to use Fiori, or we're not set to use Fiori. We can integrate with GUI transactions. So if you used MMO, one, you wanted to trigger an IPS ticket, we can use those interfaces. And even if you just wanted to use IPS and IPS tickets in a web browser, that's possible as well.
Great. Next question, consider showing the ECTR integration for IPS in a future webinar.
I think we might have had that webinar. So if somebody's interested in that, maybe we'll send out the questions afterwards. We can provide a link.
Yeah, that's actually available on our YouTube channel. So I'll include a link in the follow-up email.
Yes, I believe Bill and I did that one. I can't remember, but yes, we do have that. And we're working, continuously on improvements with the ECTR IPS integration. So some more to come on that front.
Yeah, awesome. Next question, is it possible to take current workflow information and port to IPS? It looks like they're using a different workflow engine.
We would have to take a look at what that workflow engine is and see if we could. I'm not sure of that. We might have to build it by hand, but it would be pretty quick, I imagine. So it would depend on the tool, I guess.
Yeah, they said it was from Senate.
Okay. Yeah. We can answer that. I'll probably have to answer that question maybe after this, and we'll provide an answer. So yeah, and can't recall if we've done Senate before, but yeah,
we'll research it and then include that in the follow-up notes. So
we've had a couple of requests on that, so that's getting popular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. No, and I know we've had people that want to move from the Senate to the IPS that's come up, but I don't know if we have an automated way currently to just do. So maybe I'll just say this: we use if you have an XML file, we use an XML file to move workflows and master data across environments. So I'm sure we could come up with a way to do that if there was an XML of that workflow.
Yep.
Yeah, very good. So next question, is it possible to implement with SAP ECC until we finish our S4 implementation, which may take a long time?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yes. I mean, that's how a lot of our customers are. So yeah, I mean, if you work more in the, so I mean, I could have shown this in the GUI. This just looks a little bit, I guess nicer or more modern. But yeah, if we were in any, ECC, HANA, if you want to implement IPS in the ticket, yeah, we can do that. And we have done it. So.
Yeah, and also what's good, that's a good question, because if you're in the middle of a long project, you might have certain legacy systems that you need to keep going. So we can use IPS to help reduce people having to work between two different system environments while they're doing their upgrades to S4. So that's a very good question and a good way to handle a project like that.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, guys. So we're at time, everybody. There aren't any additional questions, so I want to thank everybody for attending today. Sometime next week, probably earlier in the week, we will follow up with an email to each and every one of you with a copy of the deck that was presented today, along with the Q&A, and then we'll in a link to a recording of the video. So again, thank you so much. Have a wonderful afternoon. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.